Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Monday. Happy Monday to you. You're going to have a fantastic week. Let's dive into the Ukrainian topics, and a very big thing is going on in Kursk because on Friday's video I got some comments under my video that, oh, you will see how the Ukrainians will be crushed by this Russian counteroffensive because Russians are counter-attacking Ukrainians in the Kursk incursion area. But you know what happened, and I reported this already last Friday? Ukrainians counterattacked the Russian counteroffensive, and now 3 days later we have even more information about it. Check this out. This is how it's evolving right now, Monday as we speak. This is the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk. This is the Russian 51st Regiment and 155th Brigade attacking the flank, so the western part of the Ukrainian Kursk invasion. And these are Ukrainian reserves that were getting ready, waiting for the Russian counteroffensive to counterattack the Russian counteroffensive. And that's what they are doing right now. This here is the Russian-Ukrainian border. This area here is right before or right in front of the same river that Ukraine destroyed all bridges over, meaning that Ukrainians have crossed the Russian-Ukrainian border in a new area, pushing into the flanks and into the rear areas of the newly formed Russian counter-attacking formations. It is a very mixed up situation, but it's really cool to follow. And I can already see the pro-Russian bots going crazy because they want to punish me really heavily in the comment section for even daring to report about this. I'll read you a few threads from different Russian sources. Why Russian sources? Well, because first of all, the Russian frontline soldier has no incentive to lie. Secondly, Ukrainians have great OPSEC. So I gotta go with the Russian sources here. Kursk situation. This week, Ukrainian forces opened up a new front in Russia's Kursk region. They've punched through Russian border defenses, advanced into the White Line area. And this area right here, the red line, is the same river which all bridges have been destroyed over it. And Ukrainians are now finally passing into this wide area, which is, you know, Russians in this area, they really have an issue because they cannot really cross the river with heavy equipment. Yes, they could swim with infantry, but they have to leave their equipment. Infantry fighting vehicles and tanks. There's no bridges. They'll be hoping to hook up with Ukrainian troops in the Sucha region, push up to the river of Seym, which would make for an ideal left flank defensive position. Over a month since Ukraine invaded, the Russian forces this week finally launched a counteroffensive. They claim to have retaken a few settlements, but video footage shows large Russian armored attacks getting ripped apart by Ukrainian artillery and drones. Naturally, if Russia shovels in enough stuff, they will advance. But as we've seen in Ukraine, it would be very slow progress at a very high cost in men and material. This new Ukrainian attack into Kursk will disrupt Russia's counteroffensive and force it to redeploy troops to counter it. This was the overall overview, and now we'll go to Russian Telegram chatter about this attack. The enemy is increasing pressure from a new direction in the Kursk region, trying to storm the Vesyoloye. This is the settlement closest where Ukrainians have crossed the border. The Ukrainian Armed Forces Command has been throwing armed groups and infantry into battle for the fourth day, trying to break through our defenses in the area of the border settlements of Medvezhye and Novy Put in the Glushkovo district. Earlier they overcame minefields and dragon's teeth and are pulling in columns of armored vehicles and infantry, continuing to try to distract our troops conducting a counteroffensive in the Koreanovo district with a threat of strike in the rear. Now the Ukrainian armed forces are trying to take Vesyoloye, breaking through to it through Novy Put and Obukovka. The attacks do not stop. The operational combat situation remains tense. Heavy fighting is underway in the area village of Vesyoloye. The enemy managed to enter the settlement. Units of the armed forces of Ukraine are trying to gain a foothold in the village. Border guards are fighting together with the units of the Russian Ministry of Defense. The armed forces of Ukraine have pulled up reserves and are trying to expand the bridgehead to ensure access to the workers' settlement of Glushkovo. Artillery is working on both sides, aviation is working on our side, and reserves are also moving forward. The FSB Border Service resources reported. And to sum up this Ukrainian counterattack, to counter the Russian counterattack, this is the final summary to you. Russian Telegram channel Native Sucha on the armed forces of Ukraine counteroffensive into the Glushkovsky district of Kursk. 3 points. Number one, the armed forces of Ukraine have advanced up to 5 kilometers, and we're talking 3 days here. So 5 kilometers in 3 days from Novi Put towards the village of Veseloya. You can see it, of course, on the map also. Veseloya, right here, they cross the border here, and the same river can be here outlined by a purple line. Number two, the armed forces of Ukraine have expanded its foothold in the area of Medvedje. And number three, the armed forces of Ukraine ranger units have infiltrated the city of Detkino in the far west of the district. So whatever the Russians will try to do to strike the Ukrainians' flanks, they are in a very dense situation. If they don't leave the area of the same river to the other side, they will be pushed out slowly by Ukrainians. If they leave, they will surrender a lot of land to the Ukrainians. So no good options for the Russians there. Fucking hell, I'm really going bald. Look at that. Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that draws flavor to your mouth and fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. You still have something to reach for. Fume is not a vape. It has no vapor. You can use it anywhere. It has no nicotine. It's not addictive, non-toxic flavors. It's a guilt-free alternative. I love to fidget with it. Calms anxiety with magnets, snaps and clicks. Right now I'm using this raspberry lemon core and it's magnificent. Fume has served over 300,000 customers and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code Estonian to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for those who love to fidget and it's reusable. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use the code Estonian or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today. Thank you Fume for sponsoring today's video. My friends, there is the detailed, great drone footage of Ukrainians using a Western glide bomb to strike a building occupied by Russian airborne forces and conscripts. And the building is demolished. I watched the video. There's nothing left of the building. One great accurate bang and it's all rubble. This is exactly where it happens. Veseloya. This is the new Ukrainian incursion into Russia and they're already in the settlement of Veseloya. Ukrainian planes using glide bombs destroyed a Russian improvised command post in the village of Veseloya. Pro-Russian channels reported yesterday that the village has been already taken by Ukrainian forces, which is likely due to the fact that Ukrainian forces have seen in the village of Obukovka south to it. The area south of Glushkovo is increasingly getting difficult for the Russian army. My friends, the head of the Ukrainian GUR or the military intelligence, and it's a very wide department in the Ministry of Defense with quite big of a contingent of special forces and special drone units, and they conduct missions behind enemy lines also, and they conduct military counterintelligence, and they have spies in Russia. It's that department of the Ukrainian army. That is led by Budanov. You know the guy, the legendary poker face guy. There was a new interview made with him and he came out with a very interesting bit of information. And you know, his sources, they are the top sources because they have assets in Kremlin also. In Russia, in St. Petersburg, Moscow, Far East. I'll read you the main points. Russia aims to conclude the war by the end of 2025. by the end of next year or the beginning of 2026, seeking to achieve a victory. Russia will face significant economic challenges starting in the summer of 2025. Russia will need to conduct another round of mobilization. This, in turn, could undermine the country's social and political stability. If Russia does not secure victory, it will lose its long-term ambition of being perceived as a superpower over the next 30 years, said Budanov. That is true. You cannot be a superpower. I mean, Russia is not a superpower. Russia expects all their problems will begin in the summer of 2025, as financial, economic and socio-political factors converge. Russia is currently managing the worsening economic situation. It is aware that the ongoing recession, already severe, continues to deepen. But this is still far from the peak. They predict by the summer of 2025, the negative economic impact will become starkly evident. Russia is accelerating various processes in an effort to mitigate these effects and navigate the crisis, aiming to conclude the war on favorable terms. Russia is increasingly facing the challenge of insufficient army recruitment. By the summer of 2025, they will confront a critical dilemma: either announce another mobilization or reduce the intensity of hostilities, both of which could prove decisive for the military strategy. Budanov says that Russia will announce a mobilization or they will have to secede some land, because as soon as they don't recruit so aggressively as they do right now, or if the manpower to the army stops 30,000 a month or even greater, right now is what they recruit. If that number drops, it will immediately translate into occupied land ceded to Ukraine. Now, my friends, I'll read you a report from another frontal area, also northern front. This time we go to Kharkiv, north of Kharkiv. This is another incursion area where Russians actually penetrated over the Ukrainian border, and now the conflict has frozen in a way that neither side is moving much. But Ukrainians are using attrition to grind down the Russian forces in the area because they have a massive kamikaze drone superiority. Ukrainian troops created a catastrophe for the Russians in the Kharkiv region. The military unit Kharkiv reported that a catastrophic situation has developed for the Russian occupiers near the village of Hliboka and Liptsi, as a result of the extremely high activity of Ukrainian drone operators. According to the military, their only chance to get out of the area alive and unharmed is to return to Russia or be captured. My friends, now we go to Pokrovsk, which is the area where Russians have advanced the most out of the entire frontal areas. They have advanced altogether about 15 kilometers towards Pokrovsk, and on the 12th of September. Now, a few days have passed from it. We have all the information. Russians made one of the biggest armored assaults of this year of the war. They used altogether 46 armored vehicles in a huge column or convoy and rode straight over the Ukrainian minefields towards Ukrainian positions near Pokrovsk. And now we have drone videos and the summary of this battle which happened 4 days ago. I'll read it to you. Ukrainian forces from the 46th Air Mobile Brigade, 59th Motorized Brigade and 21st Special Battalion successfully repelled a massive mechanized assault by the Russian armored vehicles in the Pokrovsk direction. A total of 46 enemy vehicles attempted to break through the village of Khostre. The convoy concentrated near the Lazova River, where it suffered heavy losses from artillery strikes and later was finished off by drones. There's a very good summarizing video about it from different angles. Ukrainian drones were up above in the sky all the time, and there's just an explosion after explosion, and then the rest of the Russian vehicles turned back. It was a massacre. My friends, look at this photo. Olaf Scholz on the left and a very sad Taurus missile on the right, because if I was a Taurus missile meant to wreak havoc and destruction to the enemies of NATO, and I am not being used because I'm not allowed to be used, I would be very sad also. I understand this sad Taurus missile. My friends, look at these photos. This is the Crimean Bridge, and Russians have started a large-scale production in the waters next to it on both sides. They are ramming metal posts into the bottom of the water area, and the metal posts reach outside the water, forming a metal post defensive wall, if you can call it that. I mean, this is obviously against Ukrainian maritime kamikaze drone boats, but this stuff is quite expensive. Doing this for the whole duration of the bridge is very expensive. Russians have already synced an insane amount of resources into defending this bridge, and I've talked about it before and I'll talk about it again. One reason why Ukrainians might not destroy this bridge or haven't destroyed it for the last year and a half, they haven't even attacked it anymore, is that they see that Russians are pouring massive amount of resources into defending it. Choppers are always flying above. Air defense capabilities are concentrated on both ends of the bridge, and Ukraine periodically focuses and grinds them down. Boats are making their runs, patrolling around the bridge. There are barges. This bridge is forcing Putin to pour insane resources into defending it, and Ukraine doesn't even have to attack it anymore. Their goal is to waste Russian resources and to guide them away from the front lines, which is achieved right now. We see all the time constructing going on around the bridge, all the time new defensive measures being established, and all the time anti-air defense capabilities and launchers being destroyed by Ukrainian missiles or drones. I think Ukrainian intimidation tactics have worked on Crimean Bridge. It's a resource dump for the Russians. My friends, did you know that the Russian army used Starlinks for the last 3 months? If you didn't, well, now you do. That's a fact. They have been using Starlinks and they have not been stopped by the United States government or by Starlink company. Military correspondent Saponkov reports on a mass shutdown of Starlinks in use by the Russians. He says that Starlinks cannot be used for more than 90 days outside of the country of registration. Apparently, most are activated in Europe. Since the morning, there has been a mass blocking of Starlink. Dishes registered in the EU are flying off. According to Starlink rules, you cannot use a dish outside of the country of registration for more than 90 days. There is also information that dishes with activation in Germany are being massively disconnected. So yeah, the party is over for the Russians with the Starlinks. But for me, I don't like the fact that they were able to use them for 3 months without issues. That's not right. This is a photo from a Russian cafe or restaurant called Excellence. On this check, a receipt, you can see падение рубля 10%. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, but that means devaluation of the ruble 10%, and it's an extra charge. So ruble devaluates quite fast and it fluctuates up and down like the Moscow stock market, but usually the tendency is to fall in the last 2 years. How will Russian business owners protect themselves from it? They are forced to hold their capital in ruble because you are banned to hold euros and dollars in Russia. It's forbidden, punishable by law. You can go to jail for it. You have to hold your capital in ruble, but ruble goes down and you just lose your money because Putin wants to play his war game. So they start adding these devaluation percentage fees to the services. And who pays it in the end? The customer, the regular Russian. I remember almost 2 months ago even, time flies, where Zelensky and Ukraine government banned the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. People in the West who were very open to Russian propaganda took this as Zelensky bans Christianity. Now, I'm here to tell you that Russian Orthodox Church has nothing to do with Christianity. In the Soviet times, it was officially by the KGB, it was acknowledged to be hand lengthening a power structure of the KGB to control the masses who still wanted to be religious. In Putin's time, Orthodox Church of Russia has been just the lengthening of the power structure of the Kremlin. And this is all it is. It has nothing to do with Christianity whatsoever. They don't follow Christian rules. They don't follow Christian guidelines. How to be a person, human being, a good human being. I mean, Russian Orthodox Church priests bless Kalashnikovs and nuclear weapons. They pray for Ukrainians to die in Ukraine. So that's not Christianity in any way. I'm baptized, I know. But now Moldova decides to also do the sensible thing and ban the Russian Orthodox Church. Thank God. This is a spy network. It is a propaganda network. If you don't ban it, your citizens are very vulnerable to Russian propaganda without even knowing it. Now, my friends, if you allow me, I'll bring to you Putin's red lines. Putin threatened escalation in case of, and all of this is recorded on a video, him saying that if this happens, this is an escalation. Like he said recently about what long-range missiles being allowed for Ukraine to strike into Russia. He said, oh, it's an escalation. I'll read you the whole list just so we both know that red lines are like they're nothing. It's a bluff. It's an empty promise. It's a paper tiger. Russia don't care about red lines. The West does, which is incredibly stupid. If Sweden joins NATO, if Ukraine receives Western 155mm ammunition, if Ukraine gets the HIMARS, if Ukraine gets ATACMS, if Ukraine gets Western tanks, if Ukraine strikes Crimea, if Ukraine uses Western cluster munitions, if Ukraine uses Western target designators and satellite information, if Ukraine strikes Russian refineries in Russia, if Ukraine shoots down Russian military aircraft over Russia, if Ukraine gets the F-16s, and now the latest one on video where Putin said the long-range weapons are an escalation. Russian army has never done anything to react to these things being given to Ukraine. But unfortunately, these promises that we will respond have triggered fear among Western leaders. I don't know why the Western leaders are so weak or so afraid. What are you afraid of? Come here to Estonia, talk to people, see what they're afraid of. We're not. We're getting ready for war. I don't want war, but if you want peace, prepare for war. I mean, to not get ready for war, living next to Russia, is basically to just give your country away to Russia. Not to stand up to Russia, is to give your population away to Russia. The brainwash is real. So the only way is to allow Ukraine to do everything necessary and to get ready yourself. This is what we are doing because we don't stand for no bullshit anymore after 39. My friends, now I bring you one of the most awesome pieces of footage about this war we have seen in 2024. This is a Ukrainian fire drone. Yeah, I know, you have all seen the fire drone. Alright, no big deal. The fire drone is laying fire and carnage onto the Russian positions. But now I'll fast forward a little bit and check this out. Okay, very big fire. Oh, but look at this. There's Russian infantry battalion down here. And they're trying to shoot it down. Look at this. This is tracer rounds. Many guys are shooting down automated fire with Kalashnikovs, trying to shoot down this drone. Look at this rays of fire. This is full Star Wars. It's very hard to shoot down a drone. Now, if some Western people watch these videos and why don't you just shoot down the kamikazes? Why don't you just shoot down the drones? My friends, these Russians down here, it's life or death for them. There's well over 10 of them. I counted the rounds coming from different angles. They're all trying with automated fire and single shots. It is very difficult to shoot down a drone with a rifle. It's really damn difficult. All right, the drone is going forward. And again, we see them all trying to shoot it down from different angles. There's like 10 guys trying to do it. And they cannot hit it. Because it's so damn hard. It's not that they cannot shoot. It's just very difficult. This is an amazing piece of footage. And this drone at the same time is wreaking havoc on these very same dudes, burning down their defensive positions. I mean, this is crazy footage. And finally, the drone drops its canister. And you see this white dot right here. That's the drone. And now it's flying away. So they couldn't shoot it down. They tried so heavily, it didn't happen. Fire drones are a menace. Now here's a piece of news that again outlines the failing of Russia's field of influence, or however you want to call it. Before 2022, Russians were able to sell to the West the idea that they are the second army in the world. They were exporting fear. They were featured in Call of Duty games, Modern Warfare 3. You were fighting against the Russians who were attacking Washington with goddamn night vision goggles and, I don't know, submarines. That's pure science fiction. But before the war, people believed this was possible. Now we know Russians don't have that capability whatsoever. They cannot win in Ukraine. which is not the United States, not in a long shot. Well, it ties into that Russia with this war, with the starting of this full-scale war, has really hurt their public image. They're not the second army in the world. They're now the second army in Ukraine, and now they're the second army in Russia also, since Ukrainian army is in Russia. But the declining of their field of influence or their world comes with this headline. Former Soviet Union countries are preparing to abandon Cyrillic and introduce a single alphabet with Turkey. Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan are the last two countries in the Turkic-speaking world that still use Cyrillic. Now, you might think this is interesting or this has nothing to do. This has everything to do. Russian main export in the Soviet times was debil. They exported Russian morons, what they call debil, a person without a homeland. They just trash around. They exported them Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, everywhere. That was the Russian export, to export their homeless, cultureless people so they can, in 50 years' time, say that we need to protect our people and bring in the army. That's what they did. Now, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan moving away from Russian language and Cyrillic is a huge FU to Putin and his legacy. A huge FU to Russian culture, if you can call it, because it's actually a stolen culture from Ukraine. It's a huge move away from Russian sphere of influence, from Russian alphabet, language, way of thinking. It's very important. I'm not going to stop here for long, but I just want to throw that in here. United States, the State Department approves the sale of 32 F-35 multi-role combat aircraft to Romania. The price, including extra engines and other equipment, is estimated at 7.2 billion. Romania buying F-35s. I'm glad to hear it. The more countries buy, the better. Also, I think this is, again, Putin's gift, because when Putin wouldn't invade Ukraine, I'm quite sure these massive investments by countries near Black Sea or next to Russia wouldn't happen. Finland is buying F-35s. Poland is buying an insane amount of armor and Apache helicopters and everything from the United States. These investments to the United States wouldn't happen. Investments because, European countries are pouring billions into United States to get their weapons. This wouldn't happen if Putin wouldn't attack Ukraine in 2022. This wouldn't happen if United States wouldn't sell. It's in every interest for the United States to help Ukraine win this war and to prove their weapons are capable in Ukraine. Because believe me, if you're a citizen of the United States, there will be tens of billions pouring into your country and defense sector, which pays the bills of tens of thousands of Americans because they work in the defense sector. This is European money flowing in by, let's say, in 20 years, we could be talking about hundreds of billions to get American weapons because we want them, because we've seen they work in Ukraine. That's what Americans have to win from supporting Ukraine. Much more than what they pour in, they get back from Europeans buying the weapons. My friends, the footage you see right here doesn't come from the Soviet times. It comes from right now in Russia. This is the federal highway between Yakutia and Magadan. Magadan being one of the richest areas in Russia, actually, with oil and diamonds, and there's even gold. This is federal. As I said, federal meaning that government is responsible for the upkeep of this road. And this is how the road is. It's a mud road, and locals have to traverse this daily, and so they are all stuck here. It's actually a catastrophe, an emergency. Can you imagine your country having a federal highway? Say that again. A federal highway which is not paved and not taken care of. This is what it amounts to in Russia. You can pave this highway with the cost of, I don't have to know how much they cost. I will say with the cost of $5 million. You will pay this 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers, with the cost of $5 million. In Russia, it's cheap prices. That 5 million goes to one Iskander missile or one Kaliber missile. That 5 million goes to. And that Iskander is shot down by Patriot, or it hits a field somewhere in Ukraine. And this is why these guys don't have paved roads. They could. Don't send the Iskander and pave this all of this road. I mean, we don't talk about it enough, but weapons are so damn expensive. If you don't buy the weapon, we all have to in the West, of course. But if, let's say, Russia don't, they could turn the country around. Hospitals, schools, paved roads. I mean, I would imagine they would have flying cars because they have so much money in oil and gold and diamonds. But it all goes to Iskanders. My friends, now for the first time this week, I'll be butchering some Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. They are the guys who allow me to do what I do. They're the basis of this channel, like the secure fundament of this channel. I remember in 2021, the whole channel was demonetized. It was before then most of you watched me actually. The whole channel was demonetized. And back then it was the Patreons. I was kicked out of Patreon, my page was deleted, but back then it was the Patreons who kept this channel going. And most of you have migrated now to Buy Me a Coffee. I'm very thankful, and this is why I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, butchering the monthly members, and I'll keep doing it. Get ready for some ear bleeding. William Laine, Keline, Terek Todd, Jak ja Mari Jokinsie, Torsten M.K. Raber. Thank you, my friends, for being a monthly member. Until my next video, which will be on Wednesday, be sure to be back. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.